My name is Ray Thompson. I'm the director of the Edward H. Knabb Research Center for Delmarva History and Culture here at Salisbury University, and we're here today with Mildred Duffey James. Good morning, Mildred.
Good morning, Mr. Thompson.
It's good talking to you, and we're going to be talking to you about your years growing up here in Salisbury and your memories of this town and its changes over the years. So if you'll tell us at the beginning a little bit about your birth and where you lived, and we'll move on from there.
Well, I was born in 1939 here in Salisbury, in the South Salisbury area, on Jenkins Lane.
Jenkins Lane. So,
Yeah.
South Salisbury to many people will not be a name that is recognized. So will you say a little bit about the area, what area that contains?
That area would contain mostly, say, from Lincoln Avenue, which was run off on South Division Street, all the way to Route 13. And that included Vine Street and some of those other areas, Washington Street. But I was born on Jenkins Lane.
And Jenkins Lane still exists today.
Jenkins Lane still exists. On Jenkins Lane now, there are only 2 family homes, doctor's offices. I believe that's all on Jenkins Lane now.
In the home that you were born in still stands, or?
Not the home that I was born in, but one of the homes that I lived in.
Is still standing.
Well, it's not still standing. I have a friend whose house that we grew up together, her mother's house is still standing.
So we're basically talking about the area from the hospital on south, is that correct?
Yes.
And east to Lincoln Street. It's a fairly big chunk of territory, and I'll bet it's changed considerably since 1939, hasn't it?
I can truly say it's changed. And in that area, there were only 13 houses of black people, which was Jenkins Lane that I was born on, Evans Place, and Morris Street. Well, Morris Street actually was like a half street.
Oh, really?
Because part of it held a shirt factory, which was the old, I think, Manhattan shirt factory.
So now, it sounds like you grew up in an area that was racially diverse then, is that correct? You were a little pocket surrounded by a white neighborhood, a larger white neighborhood, is that right?
Believe it or not, we really were, but guess what? You never really knew it.
Yeah.
Because we were all one big family.
You know,
But I say we grew up together, we did.
You did grow up together. Yeah, I was interested to hear that you didn't grow up in the area that so many of the African Americans in this town grew up in. So tell us a little bit about growing up in South Salisbury, in that area.
It was wonderful. I can truly say it was wonderful. Our parents were great, and all of us children, we grew, like I said, we grew up together, we played together. It really wasn't too much playing, for us entertainment. We actually entertained each other. Yeah. I went to other people's houses to watch television because we didn't have one. But it's like I said, we played together, and I had one incident that happened that it was really funny because we played in the mud puddles a lot. I mean, we had nothing to do really but play in, like some kids, in that area would play. We played in mud puddles and we made our toys. And
sounds like you were a lot more creative than a lot of young people today are. You had to create your entertainment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the parents, not only that, the parents played with the kids. Like, but when I say play, when we did games together, and if we were out in the yard, the parents would be out there watching us or coaxing us to do something or just laughing with us. It was a great great growing up.
And there was a lot of interaction between the generations then, which is something that we don't see in a lot of cases today then.
Absolutely.
Do you think that obviously that had a lot to do with your development, your growing up, having people there, adults around you, as well as kids your own age? What kinds of things did you do? What kinds of relationships did you develop with the people in that area?
Well, we went from house to house, and we played different games. And one incident I remember how my brother, I have one brother, and actually I was the youngest one of those 13. I was the youngest.
Well, everybody liked you then.
A lot of people picked on me. A lot of people picked on me, of course, but we, like I said, we did different things together as far as making our own toys. And one of the things that, like the families, we did a lot of putting puzzles together. And guess what? That was our picture frames on the walls.
Oh, neat, yeah.
Putting puzzles together. We did things like that.
Did you feel any overt racism as you were growing up?
No. I often think about the young lady, and I cannot think of her name, but her father had a store on the corner of Evans Place, Mr. Roy Brown. And he had a daughter, and we used to play a lot all the time. We played a lot. And my brother, and often he talks about that. It was one young white boy in the neighborhood, and we never could think of his name. But we remembered him because he had red hair. And they were good buddies. They were good buddies. And one of the greatest things even about that, now our school was over like, well, what they called, I think, Jersey Heights now. It's off on Lake Street.
So you had quite a hike to school.
Oh yes, 3.5 miles every day.
And how did you get there?
Well, up until I was 7 years old, and remember I said I was the youngest of the group over there, we walked.
You walked that 3.5 miles?
We walked that 3.5 miles. Every day. Most of the only days we didn't walk was like rainy days. And of course, some of our parents, we didn't have taxi money. So,
no, of course not.
So we had to walk. And
you probably didn't think that was unusual, did you?
Back then, no.
Yeah.
No.
You were probably not the only ones walking to school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But not only that, one of the young men that lived in that area, he went into military. When he came out of military, he went to the Board of Education. And he said, there are 3 or 4 buses that pass the area of South Salisbury. There is no reason that they cannot stop to pick up the kids in that area.
Absolutely.
And it worked.
So it worked.
It worked. So like I said, up until I was in the 7th grade, after the 7th grade, we rode on a school bus.
I was just thinking as you're talking, this is before Highway 50 came through there.
Oh, yes.
So you saw a completely different kind of vista of Salisbury.
One of the things that I remember about that area was a store called Pat Duty's. That was on the corner across from where Family Brothers used to be in that area. And I remember that because we always stopped there and got penny candy on our way to school.
On your way to school?
Stick it in our notebooks.
Well, tell me a little bit about your education, the kind of education you got you said Jersey Heights was the...
Well, that's what I believe that area was mostly called in. But my education, I went as from the first grade to the 11th grade. Mm-hmm. I decided I wanted to come out of school.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you went to Y High then?
No, we passed Y High all those years. Y High was not there. It was called Salisbury High School.
Salisbury High School, yes.
On Lake Street is where I went. And of course, in the 11th grade, I was able to go to the new school that was built on Mars Street, which now is an elementary school. Yeah. But I went there 1 year, but like I said, I came out in the 11th grade. You know how some kids, we get a little grown.
Yeah.
We feel like we want to do more.
Exactly. So you decided you'd had enough education,
yes.
And what did you decide to do with your life then?
Well, first of all, my mother, she didn't like it. My teachers didn't like it because I was a good student. Yeah. I was a B student.
and so why did you decide you wanted to leave school? You probably liked the students that you were with.
Well,
no.
I did. I really did. I love school. Uh-huh. But as some children say today, I fell in love.
Oh, you met a boy from the South, from Princess Anne, I guess.
No, that one wasn't from Princess Anne, but yes, I met a man from... So
that sort of changed, that put the education on the back burner. Okay.
Yes,
right.
it did. Yes, it did.
And your mother was not happy about
that?
No,
she was not. Yeah. No, she was not. My teachers weren't happy because I wasn't a bad student, but anyway, that's how that went. But even after that, though, I still got married. Mm-hmm. I went to... Before that, I was working in the hospital. I worked after school on weekends. Mm-hmm. And of course, after I quit school, I went and worked full time at the hospital.
So you really have spent much of your life working in a hospital situation.
Yes. And after that, I decided, I still wanted to do something else. Mm-hmm. So I went to cosmetology school.
Oh, really?
Yes, I went to cosmetology school. I received my senior license. I owned my own shop for a while. Then I decided I didn't want to do that either.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
So I went back to the hospital. And of course, I'll say this, but in between, but I was at the hospital for 43 years. That's where I retired from.
You were at the hospital for 43 years?
Yes. But like I said, I went back to the hospital, and I worked. I didn't quit anymore. I went in several departments. Mm-hmm. But guess what? In 1984, I said no. I am going back to school and get my high school diploma. So I went back to what they call external education.
Right.
I went back and I got my Salisbury High School diploma in 1984.
How exciting is that?
Oh, it was for me because I was determined I was going to do it.
Exactly. And did you have any, when you finished that degree in 1984, did you think back, why didn't I do that other year way back when?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Oh, yes, yeah. I did. Yes, I did.
And then you could probably think, how would my life have been changed? It may not have been changed because you seem to have had a calling toward the medical field all along.
Yes. And I tell people that's the one thing that I regret is the fact that I did not go ahead and become an RN.
Right.
But I still said it's still fine because I love people, and being a CNA, I was able to come directly in contact with the person, which was
And that's very
Right.
important. That's an awfully
Yes.
important part of the healing process when people are in the hospital.
Oh,
is
yes.
Having somebody who is like you, who's
That
working with
hand
them.
on hand.
Exactly. Very
Yes.
important. Yeah.
Yes, and of course, after all that, I became a born again Christian in 1977,
77.
and of course, after that, my life has never been the same.
Well, that's probably why you have that smile on your face.
Well, girl, I know I have to keep this.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to.
Well, tell me a little bit about your mother. Do you know much about
dear.
your mother?
Oh yes, oh yes. She was, first of all, and I think this is part of the reason I smile a lot, because she was such a joyful person. People loved to be around her. And even talking about some of the things of South Salisbury, there was which we didn't mention, was a potato factory.
A potato factory?
Yes, a sweet potato factory set right in front of our house. Yes. And she actually used to do, the men, like they come in with truckloads of sweet potatoes and all that. The men a lot of time would come to our house and eat because she'd fix food for them. And, you know, it was a fun thing. And she'd sometimes even do their laundry.
Oh, my.
And of course, they'd pay her.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, it was a fun thing. And she was such a joyful person. She loved people. She loved people. And we always, like I said, we did puzzles together. She was always doing something with my brother and I.
Is that right?
Yeah, she made candy. That's something I never learned how to do. But she made candy for us and do the puzzles for us. And I was telling somebody no longer today, I said the one thing that I got from my mother, because she kept me in the kitchen, I learned how to make sweet biscuits. Because we had them practically every day.
Did you?
Yes.
And it sounds like she must have been an important part of your education, though. If she was working with puzzles with you, she was getting you to think.
Yes.
And,
Up until the time she passed, she always did crossword puzzles.
oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, she was something.
Now, she grew up in Parsonsburg.
In Parsonsburg, yes.
Parsonsburg.
Yes.
But moved to Salisbury before
Yes.
you were born.
Yes.
And that even though today that seems like a small move, it probably was a fairly significant move then.
Well, it probably was, because right beside her, right beside the house where I was born, her mother lived.
Oh,
Yeah, so my grandmother lived right beside us.
that was in Parsonsburg.
No, that was in Salisbury.
So
in Salisbury, on Jenkins Lane.
Oh, I see. So you had a blood family as well as a larger friendship
Yes,
family.
yes. And look, and I tell people even about that, and it's one thing I never will forget. In my grandmother's yard was a weeping willow tree, which was something, because sometimes that weeping willow tree, you know, the limbs were like real limber. Sometimes those limbs were made for switches.
Oh, yes, yes. So you recognize that.
Oh, yes, oh, yes. Yes. And we were really close. We were really close. And like I said, not just my family, but it was one big family in that area.
I think that's an important thing to remember. That's something that in some ways is gone now with people. They don't have that, often that friendly, welcoming attitude that
Yes.
You seem to have felt throughout your
Yes,
growing up and adult life.
yes. And even the like I said before, I was the youngest, but we just got along. And I mean, and there were times that, you know, we aggravated one another. Oh yeah, we aggravated when they'll say, "Oh, well, you know, I'm not talking to you. I'm going home." That was the word. I'm going home. But then we'd be back together the next day. you know, like nothing never happened. So it.
Now, you said there was a shirt factory near where you lived,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Did you have any, did any of your family have any relationship with that shirt factory?
No, only seen different ones and speaking. But I have one thing that happened concerning that shirt factory, and I often think about that lady. She was, well, what today people would call a midget that
really?
worked at that shirt factory. She gave me a bicycle.
Really?
Yes, she gave me I'll never. And she had red hair. She had red hair, long red hair, and that's about all I remember about her. She was real nice, but she gave me a bicycle. It worked at that shirt factory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything that you particularly remember about your growing up that you'd like to relate to us?
Well, two things really. With my brother, like I said, we were close. We were really, really close. We played together, and of course, he was mischievous. I mean, after all, he was 3 years older than I. So if anybody knows anything about that little sister with a big brother, so a lot of times he would do little mischievous things to me and then wind up getting beat. But one particular thing happened about my brother, and like I said, it was just we grew up without a father. Well, I was 4 when my mother and father separated, and of course she never remarried. But my brother, he was so good. He would get hired out to clean people's houses. And this one particular house he went to, which was next door, he had washed the dishes and had was up putting the dishes away. And they had these benches, like with the legs in the center of it. And while he was up there putting the dishes away, I got up on the other end of this bench. And he jumped off.
Oh, no.
And of course, it struck me in my chest. And it did knock the wind out of me. So this scared him to death.
I bet it did. I'll bet it did.
It scared him to death. But anyway, he got himself together to call somebody over there to me. But he never picked, well, he did still pick on me, but not as much, because that sort of scared him.
So he was the oldest of the three?
Yes.
And you had another brother or a sister?
No, just the one brother.
Oh, just the one brother.
Just the one brother. Yes, just the one brother. Yeah, he's 3 years older than I. But we were close, and we still are close.
Are you?
Yes, he lives in Pennsylvania. His name is Louis, but we're still close. Yeah, we're still close, even to the point, even when our mother passed, he was standing on one side of her bed, and I was standing on the other.
Oh,
that's how close we were.
That is wonderful.
Yes.
Let me ask you another question about your education. We sort of skipped over that. Was there a subject that you particularly liked when you were in school, one that more than others?
Science.
Science?
Science? Yes. Oh, I love science. I really do. I like to explore.
That's great. So that explains the interest in medicine then.
Yeah, I think that might have had something to do with it. But yeah, I love science.
Good.
Yes.
And you're retired now, is that correct?
Yes, I'm retired. I retired 8 years ago. Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about growing up in Salisbury, about your early years or more recent?
I don't know if if you remember Harris Market. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the aunt of that store was Miss Annie Godfrey. And there were times that I used to go down there to that store to help clean it. I mean, I was a little thing, and we'd get 50 cents an hour.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my.
50 cents an hour. I'd go down there to that store. And of course, that was actually one of the main stores in that area.
Exactly, yeah.
And of course, like I said, that was Mr. Roy Brown's store.
Mm-hmm.
And then where Dave's Cake Shop is, was John Sermon's store. So actually, that was 3 grocery stores in that area.
Right in that area.
Yes, yes, yes. But we love going to Miss Annie Goffrey's, which is Harris Market now, and I still say they still have the best produce.
Oh, yeah. My wife.
Yeah,
does it,
they
too.
still have the best produce there. Yes.
Yeah.
But after getting, I'll say, accepting Christ in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and finally I remarried.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my other husband, he died, but I remarried,
Mm-hmm.
in which so many people know the James family.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they know that name.
Yeah, it's a well-known name.
They
in this
know
area.
that name, and I married into that family. I married his father was an undertaker in Princess Anne. It's Will James.
Will James.
Yes, and so I married his son.
And you.
And like I said, we were only married before he passed. We were only married 7 years. But I tell people they were the most wonderful years of my life.
Oh, good.
Besides growing up,
That's a
and
wonderful
besides
thing.
accepting Christ.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah,
you have a very positive outlook. That's what's keeping you young, I think.
Well, that and him.
Right. Absolutely.
That and him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there any other things you'd like to tell us about yourself?
It was my grandfather's brother,
Mm-hmm.
whose name was Hank. And he would, on Sunday mornings, he would gather up some of the children, and we'd go down 13, which was 13 then, to John Wesley Church.
Oh, you did?
And I can remember then, even when I was 5, 6, or 7 years old, that I was going to John Wesley Church right down Church Street.
And that was quite a walk, too.
Oh, yes, but we walked. It was fun.
That would have been the closest church to you then,
Yes.
wouldn't it have been?
Yes.
There were lots of other churches in that
Right,
neighborhood,
but
weren't
that,
there?
that was
Yeah.
the closest,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, that was the closest. Because like I said, I told somebody, somebody asked me, why did I want to go on this quest? And I said, I had been thinking about it for a while. But a few weeks ago, I seen this article in one of the papers that said, growing up in Salisbury as a kid. And I said, you know what? I said, that's it. That's it. Because so many people do not even remember the area that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Because of, and like the shirt factory, the sweet potato factory, the sawmill, and a cement company was all in that area, within those 3 streets.
So it was a mixture of residential and business.
Yes. Yes.
That's an unusual kind of thing, too. It was kind of like a little community, a little town within a town, wasn't it?
Well, I guess you could say that, because like I said, it was just 13 houses. It was 7 on one side and 6 on another, and then it was 2 in the middle, which was on Mars Street. We used to go, like our house was only 2 houses from the railroad track. We used to go to the railroad track and watch the cars go by. And of course, there was the naval base in Norfolk. And a lot of the naval fellows and all used to go by in the train, and we'd be like there waving to them as they went by. And my brother and I, he used to actually play on the railroad track. Something else, too, that a lot of people, they probably don't even think about that today. I don't even know if they grow sassafras roots.
Mm-hmm. Sassafras.
We used to go along the railroad track and dig that up.
So it was growing in plenty right along the tracks.
Yes, that and blackberries were all around that railroad track. And we used to go there and get that.
So you weren't afraid to be near a railroad, of course you were right close to the highway too, weren't you?
Well,
and of course it wasn't, the 13 wasn't quite what it is today.
No,
was it?
No, but yeah, we were only 2 houses away from the railroad track.
And the grocery store that you went to ordinarily was just down the street then too?
Harris Market. Like I said, Harris Market. That was the father's, and then there was Mr. Roy Brown's, which was on Evans Place, and Mr. John Sermon's store. Of course, that was South Division Street. Those were the 3 grocery stores in the area.
Well, thank you for being here and talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed being here.
Thank you. As we end this presentation, I'd like to ask the audience if anyone in the audience has pictures of the Jenkins Lane, Morris Lane, South Salisbury area in the 30s, 40s, 50s. If you would, if you're willing to share them with the NAB Center, we'd like to have copies of them, and you can send them to the Edward H. NAB Research Center for Delmarva History and Culture at Salisbury University, Salisbury, Maryland, 21801. Or you can just come by the Research Center on East Campus as well. Thank you all for listening today.